Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM, and today I've made a terrible mistake.
Is this yours?
Yeah, it is. It actually is.
This is the good side, right?
Yeah, it actually is as well.
I don't actually think it has a good side really, does
No.
it? They're all bad. There is no good panel on this vehicle.
It's not, and believe me, this is the better side. This is an MG TF that I bought for an upcoming challenge, and it's not staying.
No, this will be actually the first vehicle I think you've ever let get away, because even though it looks like absolute garbage, this has a far worse history than that. Because this, in fact, car has a clean MOT.
And that is entirely the point of this whole video, is the fact that just because a car has a brand new, it was a week-old MOT when I bought it, with absolutely no advisories, so the history checked out for it to be fine, it doesn't mean that the car is actually okay.
We'll go into just what's wrong with it in a moment, but we do want to point out is that this has actually personally put me off part exchange cars. As you remember Trev's Jag, which rotted away completely, and then this was also a part exchange car, I have lost a lot of faith in what a clean MOT from a garage actually means.
Yeah, precisely. Now, I suppose this was bound to happen at some point.
Yes, we do have a very, very bad habit of going and picking up cars in the dark, in the pouring rain, and then not really actually getting a chance to test them properly because we don't want to lie on the ground underneath them. So we kind of just wind up driving them away, and this is potentially the worst example we have ever driven away.
It is not potentially, this is without doubt the worst example. I want to preface this with...
Well, I mean, the Moggy drove on the trailer, so technically you drove that away.
I knew, actually, this is worse than the Moggy. I genuinely think this is worse than the Moggy. To pretense this with, I went to buy this during a storm. I was 4 hours late to pick it up. It was bucking it down with rain, and it was I talked the seller down for basically half the asking price, to which I went, it's probably okay with a clean MOT.
I just want to go out there is that if I was present for this, I would have talked him down to 1/8 of the asking price, and that still would have been a push.
Yeah, I made a terrible, terrible mistake, even by my standards.
I mean, any of us can do it, but this is a new low. This really is a new low.
Yeah. The MG TF here represents the last of the MGs that was developed and built within the UK. It is a mid-engine sports car.
And it's not the only sports car MG have ever made. They actually have a very good lineage of these, stretching all the way back to the MGA. This has heritage.
Yeah.
This is not a good example of the continuation of that heritage, but it does have it.
It's not. But this generation of MG I really like. I like the MG ZR, I like the MGF and the MG TF, and I like the Rover 75. This era I like.
Yeah.
But not this one. Soon enough stalling. When driving this back, I knew that something was wrong and I'd made a mistake.
Something was wrong. Everything was wrong.
Yeah, okay. It drove okay, I'll give it that. It did deliver power and drive fine.
Just when you were pulling into this cul-de-sac here, the noise of it going over a curb was ka-clonk.
Yeah, okay, it does make some noises. So, having some intuition, I decided I'd book it into my garage for a pre-MOT. And the list of things that should have at least been noticed or were fails is as follows.
And we just want to point out is that these can't possibly have gone wrong in the drive home. This is 1 week from it getting a clean MOT to this test.
Yeah, these are all things that the garage has said that it is very, very unlikely or impossible for these faults to have occurred within the 1 week period of me buying it and them inspecting it. So, just on a list of things that should have been flagged or failed an MOT, it requires 3 wheel bearings, 3 tyres, discs and pads all round. The rear brake light is not working, the centre one. The subframe has got not just rot in it, but it's all covered with silver spray paint, which is flaking off.
And gaffer tape.
And gaffer tape,
Quality
covering
fixes.
the holes in both the front and the rear subframe.
And the engine is leaking from no less than 2 places of oil as well.
Yes, where the sensor plugs in is very oily, and the top. It is also leaking fuel, and it is leaking coolant.
The fuel smell is absolutely atrocious. When you sit inside this vehicle, the first thing you think is, all I smell is petrol. But that's just what it failed an MOT on. Yeah. I mean, the number of faults is insane. Like here, this corner, it literally scrapes against the wheel, so you can hear that while you're driving along. Yep. This entire side is wavy. It's had a shunt up the rear. Yep. The roof has 3 separate holes in it, and I cannot sit here and list all the faults to you because there are so many.
Yep. Oh, and now it's got a flat battery.
Well, yes, but that's probably not their fault. That might actually be our fault.
That is. There isn't really an angle on this that's good.
I mean, especially not the rear, but this side still takes the cake. But you can just tell how bad this car is by... It's actually cutting my hand up a little bit there.
It's amazingly not that damp inside, and it should be damper than it is.
I'm guessing it was stored in a garage or with some tape over it.
It wasn't stored in a garage, it was outside.
I want to point out that they took the effort to put tape on the subframe as well.
Yep, but not on the roof.
But not on here where you'd actually kind of accept it as a fix.
No. Now, part of the problem with the car is it's definitely been involved in an accident at some point.
And we're not talking small accident, which we'll get onto in a little bit.
No, it's... At some point, I'm not sure if it's multiple or one, at some point it's been shunted here because if you look at the number plate, the lights are all bent in and broken in their clips. And also, if I open the boot...
Hear that noise? That's the metal physically rubbing against each other where the boot doesn't actually fit anymore and has to pop over that corner there.
Yeah, it's the other big problem is there is only one key, and if you shut the boot with the key inside it, you can't get it out. That's not a problem with this particular car, that's the design. Other issues are the top of the engine is very oily.
Yep, and the bottom of the engine is also very oily.
Yes, and apparently looking at that, it doesn't seal because it's wet in there as well.
That's not just wet in there, that's actually like growing mould in the bottom of that boot.
Yeah, that's unpleasant, isn't it? It's bad. I mean, to be fair, that probably shouldn't have been picked up on the MOT, and this was a car for a cheap challenge.
But what did get picked up on is the biggest evidence of it having a genuinely bad shunt.
So on the inside of the car, there are obviously one or two things that are wrong with it.
Like the smell of petrol I can still smell outside the car.
Yeah, it's quite strong. If you leave it, it gets worse. If you've driven it for a bit, it goes away. The biggest thing is that here, there should be an airbag. And as I was driving home, this fell off, revealing no airbag. And if I turn the ignition on the car, there is no airbag warning light. And if you look closely at the top of the dash, you can see where it's been forcibly removed to remove the airbag warning light, so it doesn't come up on an MOT. The other MOT failure I forgot to mention is there's no horn. So yes, that's it's definitely had a shunt, it's definitely been hit and set off the airbag, and it's definitely been repaired poorly. Other problems in here are the fact that the gear selector has just fallen apart. A piece of trim is moving here, so obviously they were doing something down here. And the most upsetting thing about the whole car is that if I release this and I release this, it just doesn't really, it goes like there and then it locks.
It's seized.
It's seized. It's because so much water's got into it. I can't even put my roof down on my convertible.
So it's a £300 roof just to replace that. So that would have already put you over the budget of the challenge. I'd be brutally honest.
I would have kept going with the broken roof. I think WD-40 would fix that. Oh wow, I've just noticed there's holes in the roof as well.
More holes in the roof.
Yeah. On the other hand, most of the gauges work. Oil temperature, that all works as it should. The radio doesn't either. That's just held in with pieces of tape.
Oh. And of course the alarm system doesn't work in this.
No, the alarm has several wires leading to it which aren't connected.
And what about the central locking? I assume that's all good.
Yeah, if you press the button the lights flash, but the doors don't lock. Oh, if I put that window down, the window falls out of its runner as it goes back up.
Okay, can you list me a feature on this car which actually works as intended by MG?
The blower?
No, I thought you said that smells of coolant.
Oh, yeah, it does actually, but it does blow hot air. The headlights work. It does have headlights.
But they're very, very badly clouded. I mean...
But they work.
You'd almost put that down to fail on MOT for cloudiness alone.
Indicators? They work. The door handles, the doors open fine.
Apart from the central locking.
Apart from the central locking. Oh, and the other thing, it does have a random LED that flashes there, which I don't think's stock. I've made a terrible, terrible mistake. A terrible mistake. And by the time you watch this video, this car will no longer be with us. I fully accept with this car that I really did, well and truly, really badly muck up.
This is why you don't go and view cars without me. He didn't even let me know he was going to look at this, and then all of a sudden it turns up, I've got a car, it's not very good.
To kind of defend me slightly, I was in the area and this was 10 minutes away from where I was going to be.
It was dark and it was a storm and I couldn't see, but let's be honest, mistakes were still made. Mistakes
were made, I shouldn't have bought it. It was one of those cars that I went, for the money, it looks and wreck, it would be perfect for the channel, and with a clean MOT history, I can enjoy it for a year. If it hadn't got a clean MOT, I certainly would not have bought it. That was the whole thing, the whole reason for buying it was brand new MOT, I can drive it around, there's nothing wrong with it on a MOT front end. It's scuffy, scabby, that's fine, I can live with that, but clean MOT, which is the whole point of this. MOTs are meant to be there to show a car is roadworthy and has been looked after and inspected.
And most importantly, is safe, because, well, this isn't.
This is not a safe car, no, not at all. This does, as you said earlier, this belongs in a scrapyard.
Yes.
And the MOT is there to help you as a buyer. That's why we can now in the UK check online to see the MOT history of a car, to see if it's been looked after, to see what's wrong with it, to see the faults it had. When this happens and a car is given a fake MOT, it's a worrying thing. And this is going to be dealt with properly by the authorities.
And it undermines the whole safety of the system as well, which is, it's very, very scary when you realise that there might be cars out there. I mean, we go on a lot how old cars really can't pass an MOT. Like something like your Moggy Miner, it's never going to get through a modern MOT.
Which is why it's now exempt.
Yes, but we still feel that there should be some check.
Yes.
When you have vehicles like this, which are excluding what little safety checks we actually have in this country.
That's because the MOT isn't, the MOT is a basic, lots of people get angry with it and go, oh, my car broke the day after an MOT. The MOT is there to make sure it's safe.
Yes.
It's not there to show it's reliable, it's safe. It checks your brakes, your tyres, the car's structure, that it indicates and shows everyone where it is, the lights work. It's all about safety. And yeah, the fact that this has had it dodgy endangers people on the road, not just the occupier, the person driving it, but other people around it. So if you're going to buy a car and do what we do better than I did and actually have a good look at the car.
Be careful. So in an absolute first for LMM, we get rid of a vehicle.
Yeah.
It's not technically the first car you've gotten rid of. You've gotten rid of cars in the past, but this is the first one since this channel started where we actually have to say goodbye to a car.
Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. This, despite all appearances, was not bought as a project. It was bought as a car with a clean MOT that I could drive around, use for a video, not this video, this isn't not what I envisioned, but drive it around and enjoy it.
And quite sadly, I mean, you know us, and we very often take on projects which are far too big for us and really shouldn't be repaired. But this is genuinely another level. This belongs in a scrapyard. Every major system on it needs a serious overhaul. Like, if this was 30 years in the future, you'd look at a car like this and go, oh, that's fantastic. It's a vintage vehicle, we can restore it. And that's the kind of state this car's in now, where everything needs to be done like it would be on a car which was 50, 60 years old.
Yeah, it is. And as much as I really like these and driving it, I've gone, I want one. This is a first. I have enough projects to get on with in the shed. I have enough things, and I don't mind buying something that I know is going to be a project and put it onto the back burner. You know, I've got it, it's safe. This wasn't meant to be a project, at least not one of this magnitude.
And it's worth pointing out as well is that if you were to do everything on this car, it would cost you far in excess of a concourse considered an absolute beauty.
And it will never be that level.
No, you would need to completely respray it, do all the bodywork. That's £3 there. The roof is gone. That's another £300. All of your brakes, all of your tyres, the engine needs work. Like, this is genuinely, to get this into a good workable condition.
Not to mention the chassis that has holes in it and is rotten. The sub-chassis need doing. It needs replacement sub-chassis.
This is almost a £10,000 project for a car which, when it is in good, fantastic condition, is £2,000.
Which is, this is too much for us. And I never thought I'd kind of go something, go, we're giving up, but I don't even want to start something like this. It's a lost cause.
Hopefully its parts will live on in another vehicle somewhere.
What's good in it? That's the problem. I can't even break it. There is literally nothing good on it to break.
Yeah.
I mucked up. So yeah, I think that's basically it.
Always check over a car thoroughly.
Learn a lesson from us. Don't buy in the dark. Don't buy in the rain. Go with somebody that you trust, who's here to help out and tell you when it's a bad idea.
And don't always trust what the seller says. The vast majority of sellers out there are perfectly honest, and they are genuinely trying to get rid of a car which they actually probably quite like. But some of them out there, well, they don't always have your best interests at heart.
No. And also, do check the MOT. Just because that MOT says there's nothing wrong with that car, and even if it's a fresh MOT, don't take it as gospel. Otherwise you could get stung like I have and be given a complete and utter lemon.
I mean, just actually thinking about this legitimately, if a police officer pulled you over in this car, you would have got 9 points on your licence from the tyres alone, as 3 of them were bold, let alone all the other faults on the car.
Yep. And I don't know what happens in that situation that I've just bought this car, because the only time I have driven it was bringing it home and then taking it to the garage. And so when I was driving it home, I was under the green slip. So I imagine there would have been a bit of leeway there of him saying, yeah, because the whole purpose of moving forward to this and contacting DVSA was this car was bought in good faith based on a good MOT. And that is what's going to happen now. It's going to be reporting this vehicle for being a problem.
That's the nice way of putting it. A problem.
Oh God, I made a terrible mistake.
It's alright, you'll be in a heap soon, mate. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about a little nugget.
Me or the car?
Well, both of you, but this is probably going to get there a bit quicker.